Welcome back to this segment you only see here on CNY Central Inside Justice. We're joined by Onondaga County District Attorney Bill Fitzpatrick, talking about some of the biggest issues in the law. And welcome back, DA. It's good to have you here.
Thanks, Matt. Megan, good to see both of you.
Good to see you as well. Let's start with Roger Springfield. His case was due in court this morning. What's the latest on that? Because we've been getting a lot of calls from people wondering.
Well, first of all, it kind of, I think it's affected everybody that knew Mr. Springfield. You know, I certainly knew him casually to say hi to him, and he's presumed innocent, of course, but it's just kind of shocking, isn't it? You know, you think you know somebody. But in any event, the case was on this morning. His lawyer is Jim McGraw, is a very, very good attorney, and they're fighting about this and that, and it's on for, I think, sometime in March. I'm optimistic that it'll be resolved short of a trial, but I can't say that for certain.
So we're expecting a plea deal potentially?
I would hope so. I think it's, you know, we're trying to keep in touch with 108 victims, and, you know, they have different perspectives. You know, some people want them, you know, shot in high noon, and other people are a little more understanding of what's going to happen. And it's in the hands of Judge Miller, who is, I think, a very, very good person to have the case.
Let's talk about guns in New York State.
Okay.
You know, the district attorneys came out and shortly after you made your statement about what you thought was appropriate, the state passed a law that pretty much paralleled what you were looking for.
It actually went a little bit beyond it, Matt, because we were talking about banning high-capacity clips, and we were talking maybe 30 as a minimum.
This went further.
This went further to 7, which I don't certainly want to make predictions. Someone will challenge that as being unconstitutional, because if you purchase a handgun for personal protection, the Supreme Court of the United States has settled that issue. There was a letter in the paper the other day that the Second Amendment only applied to the militia. That may be your opinion, but the fact is the law of the land, which is now well settled, is that the Second Amendment is designed for personal protection. Is a 10-shot capacity magazine so beyond the scope of personal protection that it can be banned by the state? Those are the criteria that the Supreme Court will look at. That may be problematic.
It may take a few years for that to shake out, do you think?
Yes, I think there's going to be some refinement of this statute to put in an exception for law enforcement. There's a movement afoot that maybe ex-law enforcement should be exempted from the law as well. The questions about patient-doctor privilege are going to be very problematic.
In terms of mental health.
What does the person have to say to trigger the statute? The person says to his or her psychiatrist, I had an inappropriate dream last night. I saw myself in a mall, you know, shooting people. And you can't control your dreams. And if he wants to have an honest relationship with his therapist, does his therapist then, is that person then obligated to advise law enforcement? But these things, I think, will be worked out. The governor's absolutely correct that in light of Newtown, in light of, you know, 62 other mass shootings that we've had just in the last 3 decades, something needed to be done.
All right, so let's talk about gun violence, though, but more on a local level, because
Right.
we saw a horrific double shooting here just a couple of days ago.
Right.
One teenager was shot, another in critical condition. Is enough being done to control crime in this area, or what needs to be done to stop this?
Well, you know, it's interesting, the timing of this, Megan. If you look back, most of these perpetrators are in the 14 to 19-year-old category. What happened 14 to 19 years ago? There was an influx, there was an explosion of crack cocaine use by mothers, and there was an explosion of what people sometimes erroneously refer to as crack babies. My point, which I've made many, many times in my career, is if you have children having children, you have an influx of illegal handguns, mostly from the South, you have a recipe for disaster. And we're seeing that now.
We're actually looking, while you're talking, these are pictures of young black men that have been lost in our community. There's a wall of them.
#1 cause of homicide amongst, or #1 cause of death amongst African American teens and young adults is homicide. I would like to say that I hope that if that were happening in the white community, that everyone would be equally outraged. And I don't see the immediacy of concern for action that I think would be reflected if it were, you know, more affluent people being killed. It's a national. It's not just Syracuse, and believe me, you have no idea how much better the homicide rate is, lower it is than in Rochester, Utica, and some other major cities.
Thank you, Bill Fitzpatrick, for joining us. We'll see you next month too. Inside Justice continues.
Thank you very much.
Anytime
Matt.
in between.
Okay, hopefully we
needs
can
something.
talk about something a little,
Yeah.
a little more lighthearted.
A little more upbeat.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice
thanks.
to see you. Thank
Good
you.
to-
Well, before you take your family to Walt Disney World, we are helping you get through the parks stress-free. We are going to be talking to Jeff
Should have the DA
Marola.
asking him his questions about Disney World.
That's right. 165 days. That is the amount of time that Jeff Marola has spent at the happiest place on earth. You can chat with him live right now. He's being inundated with questions. And we're going to talk to him coming up in our talk tonight and get some more insider secrets.